disease, restoring vitality, and redefining what it means to thrive. From groundbreaking evidence showing the power of nutrition, how we treat disease. But today, a new frontier is reshaping the future of healthcare: lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine is more than prevention. It is about reversing disease, restoring vitality, and redefining what it means to thrive. From groundbreaking evidence showing the power of nutrition to lower heart disease, to clinical trials proving exercise can rival medication for depression, to emerging data on sleep, stress, and social connection, the science is clear. The choices we make each day can change the trajectory of our health. Every breakthrough in medicine begins with a simple question: what if we could live not just longer, but healthier? For decades, modern medicine has transformed how we treat disease. But today, a new frontier is reshaping the future of healthcare: lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine is more than prevention. It's about reversing disease, restoring vitality, and redefining what it means to thrive. From groundbreaking evidence showing the power of nutrition, how we treat disease. But today, a new frontier is reshaping the future of healthcare: lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine is more than prevention. It is about reversing disease, restoring vitality, and redefining what it means to thrive. From groundbreaking evidence showing the power of nutrition to lower heart disease, to clinical trials proving exercise can rival medication for depression, to emerging data on sleep, stress, and social connection, the science is clear. The choices we make each day can change the trajectory of our health. Every breakthrough in medicine begins with a simple question: what if we could live not just longer, but healthier? For decades, modern medicine has transformed how we treat disease. But today, a new frontier is reshaping the future of healthcare: lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine is more than prevention. It's about reversing disease, restoring vitality, and redefining what it means to thrive. From groundbreaking evidence showing the power of nutrition, how we treat disease. But today, a new frontier is reshaping the future of healthcare: lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine is more than prevention. It is about reversing disease, restoring vitality, and redefining what it means to thrive. From groundbreaking evidence showing the power of nutrition to lower heart disease, to clinical trials proving exercise can rival medication for depression, to emerging data on sleep, stress, and social connection, the science is clear. The choices we make each day can change the trajectory of our health. Every breakthrough in medicine begins with a simple question: what if we could live not just longer, but healthier? For decades, modern medicine has transformed how we treat disease. But today, a new frontier is reshaping the future of healthcare: lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine is more than prevention. It's about reversing disease, restoring vitality, and redefining what it means to thrive. From groundbreaking evidence showing the power of nutrition, how we treat disease. But today, a new frontier is reshaping the future of healthcare: lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine is more than prevention. It is about reversing disease, restoring vitality, and redefining what it means to thrive. From groundbreaking evidence showing the power of nutrition to lower heart disease, to clinical trials proving exercise can rival medication for depression, to emerging data on sleep, stress, and social connection, the science is clear. The choices we make each day can change the trajectory of our health. Every breakthrough in medicine begins with a simple question: what if we could live not just longer, but healthier? For decades, modern medicine has transformed how we treat disease. But today, a new frontier is reshaping the future of healthcare: lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine is more than prevention. It's about reversing disease, restoring vitality, and redefining what it means to thrive. From groundbreaking evidence showing the power of nutrition, how we treat disease. But today, a new frontier is reshaping the future of healthcare: lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine is more than prevention. It is about reversing disease, restoring vitality, and redefining what it means to thrive. From groundbreaking evidence showing the power of nutrition to lower heart disease, to clinical trials proving exercise can rival medication for depression, to emerging data on sleep, stress, and social connection, the science is clear. The choices we make each day can change the trajectory of our health.
How are we all doing? Do you mind if I ask a big favor? Could we all come right up the front, just so that there's not too much, we're not too spread out, and so that any stragglers can fit their way through as well. Okay. I'd like to officially welcome all of you for this exciting journey that we're about to begin. We've entitled this journey as part of Youth Health Week, Breakthroughs in Medicine. And we're going to kick things off with our topic of the night and our theme of the night, the microbiome. You are what they eat. Can we all say that? You are what they eat. Okay, and we're going to understand why it's termed that way, but there's a specific reason why. And our journey is going to be quite a whirlwind. We're going to go through all different types of body systems, the main body systems in the body. And also, it's a very disease-focused as well as a systems-focused approach to health. And by so doing, we'll cover a broad range of topics, and hopefully by the end of the week, we're going to be armed and kitted up to ensure that we can have optimum health. Okay? So tonight, like I said, we're going to be doing the microbiome, which is to do with gut health. And a lot of people don't realize how important gut health has to do with our systemic health. And it's such a fascinating area of medicine, and there's a lot of emerging things that have come out as a result of this field of study. Just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Dr. Onoma. I graduated medical school in COVID, the year of COVID. So it was quite a whirlwind journey, going through all the hospital system and the challenges associated with that. But along the way, by the grace of God, I've accumulated different various experiences in different areas of medicine, including rural medicine, emergency medicine, done the standard terms that all doctors go through, obstetrics, general medicine, general surgery. And currently, I'm specializing in neurosurgery, and this is my second year in the field. So this is going to be, I'm going to give some of my tidbits and some of the stuff that I've learned along the way, and I'm sure that you will enjoy it. My co-host is Simeon, who's a doctor in training, and he will be presenting some of our other lectures. And he's an aspiring doctor in training, and due to his recency experience in the medical system and the medical education system, he's going to provide some other insights into some of the topics during this week. So tomorrow night, I don't want you to miss tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, we're going to be looking at the China study. How many of you have heard of the China study? The China study, that study actually was a game changer for me. It actually revolutionized my desire to pursue a healthy lifestyle. And we're going to look at the roadmap in preventing and even treat cancers. And then next night, my co-host will be looking after this topic, hypertension, the silent killer. Many people don't realize that they're living with a ticking time bomb. It's a devastating disease when it's not controlled, and it can wreak havoc into all sorts of end organ body systems. My co-host will also look at the immune system in detail, entitled System Reboot. Many of us were exposed to the elements, whether you're a carer, you're looking after other people, you're a nurse, or you're a teacher, or even just going about the community. We're all exposed to the element. And as a result, because of the common cold and common viruses, we also want to guard ourselves against emerging new viruses. How do we protect ourselves from that? What if there's another pandemic? How do we guard ourselves and kit ourselves to be best fitted against these emerging pathogens. And then we're going to look into the following night after that, how not to lose your mind, dealing with a devastating epidemic, dealing with Alzheimer's and Alzheimer's-like conditions, including dementia. And also we'll touch a little about mental health as well. And then on our final evening, we're going to take a little bit of a turn, very much medical, but a little bit of a turn. We're going to look at under the microscope. And we'll look at a lot of the underpinnings that has resulted of a lot of the diseases we face today. And we're going to look into greater detail, literally under the microscope, what is the reason why we are exposed to these diseases today. And then we're going to find out that actually the ancient literature of Scripture has a lot to say about this and where we come from as well. So you don't want to miss this. You don't want to miss this. So without further ado, I'd like to thank Aikenville Church for hosting me here today and for allowing me this opportunity. And for those of you who are new here, it's our custom just to say a quick word of prayer before we continue. Heavenly Father, great God of the universe, thank you so much, Lord, for giving us an opportunity to learn about how we can keep ourselves, protect ourselves from all sorts of diseases. Father, you've given us many promises, and Lord, we can't wait to learn about these things and help us, Lord, to be fitted and healthy and happy. We ask this in the name of your Son, Christ Jesus, amen. Okay, let's play this video.
His brain. The details may make you a bit queasy. The 64-year-old was admitted to Canberra Hospital in 2021 with abdominal pain, fever, and coughing. A year later, she had memory loss and depression. A neurosurgeon performed a biopsy through a hole in her skull, and a parasite that was there was about 3 inches long. It was removed. It was the larva from an Australian native roundworm that isn't commonly a human parasite.
In my normal life, if I was in the garden, if I saw a worm, I'd be screaming and screeching like the rest of us. But in theatre, we normally are very controlled, and it's certainly not what we expect, but we took that time to sort of take stock, not squish the worm, so the scientists were able to identify exactly what it was.
Well, that surgeon says that she is still traumatized by finding that unusual thing in the woman's brain. The patient was treated and released from the hospital, and doctors are keeping in close contact with her.
The surgeon was traumatized. You think they've seen everything. Then finally it's like, that's too much already.
That's a little rare.
It is a little rare. Still,
I don't know about you guys, but I would be traumatized too if I saw that in
Doctors are investigating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not something that we should ever see. But thankfully, parasites are not a normal part of the microbiome. But it's interesting. The reason why I found this video interesting is that this patient where they found this parasite, it started off with having non-specific abdominal symptoms, a little bit lethargic, just nausea. And then later she had, very much neurological symptoms, some headaches. And it just shows like the intimate link between our gut health, because these things were something that she ingested, and eventually the parasite made its way to the brain, and how intimately linked between our gut and our brain, and how different pathogens can manifest in such a way. And I think it's very interesting. And we're going to go into a deeper dive and also explore this causal link between the gut and brain health. As a neurosurgical doctor, I'm quite biased to say that the brain is perhaps the most important organ in the body. Would anyone agree with that or disagree with that? In my opinion, the brain is so important. It's involved in so many systems. But I would say that the gut microbiome is the most important organ that we've never known about. Many of us have heard about the liver, the skin. We've heard about the cardiovascular system. All these important organs that play an important role. But few people rarely think about the gut microbiome as an important contributor to health. So I want to introduce the gut microbiome as this new organ system, not that it's but new to our psyche, and how important role it plays in our overall health. Now, when we think of the important factors of health, I'll just put it out in the audience. What are the things do you think is important to have good health? What are the important factors that contribute to your health? Anyone can call out. Is there one? Oxygen, very good. Good water, good clear drinking water. And so a lot of this, so far we're mentioning some lifestyle factors. Any other factors that play a key role in our overall health? Exercise, sleep, very good. Exercise, we've got exercise here, got nutrition. Environment, very good. So we've listed some important lifestyle factors, but then there are also environmental factors, isn't it? You know, if you're next to, you know, a sewage, you know, plant, and you know, you knows what you're eating and drinking, you know, from your environment, or a toxic, you know, chemical plant, you know, that plays an important part in health, isn't it? What other factors? We've got some other factors here as well. So I've got it listed here as like a Venn diagram. Some of what we call the X factors of human health. What are the X factors? The things that is pivotal to having great optimum health. First, have to look at our genetics, isn't it? You know, we have what we're given from our parents. That plays an important role, isn't it? Like what we're born with, and there are some conditions that are very much genetically predisposed, isn't it? Like cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia. All these things require, you know, genetic processes to occur. But then there's also, the reason why a lot of doctors take family history is because we recognize that if your family has a history of aneurysms, especially if it's a first-degree relative, then your risk of having an aneurysm is also high. So we care about that stuff, and in particular, this aspect of epigenetics as well, which is the relationship between the environment and our genetic makeup. Also, we mentioned about the environment already, how important that is. We mentioned a lot of lifestyle factors. And then we have the microbiota, and we're going to explore that. And in terms of, you know, the gut-brain axis, how important that is between the gut and as well as the brain axis. And I just want to touch a little bit about that, is that the gut is actually a neurological organ in its own right. Did you know that? Yeah, exactly. You're spot on. It's actually called the second brain. It has its own what we call enteric nervous system. It even uses like the same neurotransmitters that the brain uses, like serotonin. It's all in the gut as well. So it's no wonder why it's important that we ascertain and learn more about this system called the gut microbiome. It must play an important role, don't you think? But I want to reassure you, in spite of all those factors, genetics was only one of those factors, and even then there's epigenetics, which we now realize plays a bigger role in the genetic manifestation of disease. So I want us to encourage that the reason why this topic is so important is that, yes, our genes are important, but they are not our destiny, isn't it? They are not our destiny. You know, as the saying goes, genes loads the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger, isn't it? So I just want to encourage us, because it means that we are empowered by learning about the microbiome and other lifestyle factors. And as we go through this journey and series that during this week, we will be empowered to realize, actually, we have more control of our health than we realize. And I think that should be really exciting, and you should be really empowered by that. And I really love what the ancient literature says about the importance of health and the factors that contribute to health. And this is a very precious promise to me. It says, if you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, obeying his commands and keeping all his decrees, then I will not make you suffer any of the diseases I sent on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. Now, this is very interesting. Like, this comes from ancient literature source from the Bible, from the Torah. But here it talks about, makes reference to Egyptians suffering diseases. Do you know that the Egyptians had the same lifestyle diseases that we as a society face today? Did you know that? The Egyptians, I remember this was taught to me in a secular medical school. There's this field called anthropological pathology, where they look at the mummies, because the Egyptians were very good at preserving their mummies. So they could actually diagnose conditions long time ago, and they had asthma, they had obesity, they had cancer, they had autoimmune conditions, all those things that we face today. And here, the God of Israel is saying, I will protect you from none of these diseases as long as you follow the strict guidelines and decrees. So it shows that lifestyle and listening to good advice and sound counsel is crucial in protecting us from disease. Now, just a brief run through. When we talk about the gut microbiome, I want us to be very specific what we mean by the gut microbiome, okay? So obviously, the digestive system starts with the oropharynx, and it goes down to the esophagus, and it goes down to the stomach. Then we go through the different parts of the small intestine, the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum, which make up the small intestine. And eventually we get up to the large intestine. So when I say the gut microbiome, I'm talking specifically about the large intestine, because that's where all the action is happening. That's where all the excitement, the magic, so to speak, is happening. So that's what we mean by the gut microbiome, specifically the large intestine and everything that's happening. Now, as queasy as that looked when that neurosurgeon picked up that parasitic worm, from the brain, thankfully, with parasites, like I said, don't make up normal proponents of our gut microbiome. Nonetheless, it's still disturbing to know that our body is made up of more microorganisms than there is human. Did you know that? Do you know that we are more microorganisms than we are actually human? And by the ratio of 10 to 1, in fact. So it's actually quite profound to think that we are just walking around with so many, billions and billions of non-human genetic material within us and around us, isn't it? And it's very interesting that there's different ecosystems. When you think of biome, you think of an ecosystem. Our skin has its unique ecosystem. There's even ecosystems in our body that is completely sterile. That's why urinary tract infections, any type of foreign material, it's game over. You have a urinary tract infection, it doesn't matter because it's a sterile condition. So there are parts of the body that's completely clean, and then there are other parts of the body that is teeming with life, with other microorganisms. And so it's very fascinating to know that actually we're made up of more microorganisms than we are human. What microorganisms are we talking about? We're talking about bacteria, fungi, viruses, and many others. And the biggest and most important one is the gut microbiome. Okay, like I said, we have the skin microbiota, we have the gut microbiota, but the biggest and most important one that plays the most crucial role is the gut microbiome. Okay. Now, let's have a look at, so we've talked about all the different types of compositions of the microbiome, of the skin, the oropharynx, the gut, and how important the gut, but ladies and gentlemen, we are only just scratching the surface. Did you know that? Like the scale of this system that we're only now learning about in recent times, we're actually trying to find new ways of finding what is beneath that tip of the iceberg. We have old techniques like using culture mediums where we can look for the common pathogens. But then there's all these billions and billions of other organisms that we're trying to find ways to ascertain and to look, because if we think this is so important, we need to find ways to actually understand it, isn't it? We need to find ways to actually understand it. So what are some of the ways that we try to understand it? Just before we go into some of those ways, I want to highlight why this is so important, why it's so crucial to look at below the surface and have a good understanding of what our makeup of this microbiome looks like. Because understanding this, we realize that the microbiome is linked to all sorts of diseases that you will never imagine. For example, it's linked to digestive disorders, naturally, you can imagine, irritable bowel syndrome, which is not just a visceral response, but it's also some mental health components as well to it, stress components, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, inflammatory bowel disease, even mental health. Can you believe it? That your microbiome, your gut, is involved with your mental health, depression and anxiety, autoimmune conditions, because it plays a crucial role in regulating your immune system, it interacts with your immune system so intimately, and of course, metabolic disorders, and even cancer, as we see later. So this is I want you guys to get this scale and understand what we're dealing with here. And I think the best way to understand this, the only way I can find a way to kind of encapsulate this is to think of how we can understand the universe. Our gut microbiome, think of our gut microbiome as this vast universe that we don't know about, okay? And think about, like, we have the term called the known universe. What do we mean by the known universe? It means we don't have the technology to look beyond what we know, isn't it? We have the Hubble telescope, we have all sorts of satellites, but there's only so much magnification they can achieve. We just need to build bigger telescopes, bigger satellites, so that we can go beyond our horizon. Similar with the gut microbiome, there's actually so much we don't know. We're struggling to find the technologies to have a deep understanding. But we do have emerging technologies, as I'm going to discuss now, to go through these trillions and trillions of cells and these thousands of different species that we're trying to uncover. And I cannot help but acknowledge this ancient text from the psalmist. It says I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. Isn't it? I think we can testify of that, isn't it? Because it boggles the mind how complex it is. And all of this, because of the complexity, I can't help, and you're free to have differing opinions on this, but I can't help but think that all this points to a creator, isn't it? All this must point to a creator. And it just boggles the mind what we're dealing with here. So how do we visualize the invisible, right? So we have this challenge. We know how vast this organ system is, but how do we actually go deep and go into the nitty-gritty? Well, we have emerging techniques. So we have what we call traditional microscopy, which was what I was talking about, looking at the Petri dish. I don't know if you guys did some high school science and had a Petri dish or anything like that. So that's one technique. And then once we get as far as we can through that method, we have our RNA sequencing, where we can identify the bacteria by the genetic barcode, so to speak. We all have a unique composition, and depending on how the sequencing comes about, it's almost like a sequencing of genetic material, somewhat like a barcode. And then we have metagenomic sequencing, which captures all genetic material in a sample to identify organisms in a larger scale. And then we have advanced imaging techniques. We have electron microscopes, 3D visualization, and no doubt with the emerging technologies of artificial intelligence, a lot of these processes will be streamlined and ascertained. So I can envisage in the future when you go to visit your doctor, one of the things they can do is to test your unique microbiome, just as you have a unique fingerprint. Can you imagine that? The same way that you have a unique fingerprint, you have a unique microbiome that's just you. That's just you. So I anticipate this is all emerging. This is why this series is entitled Breakthroughs in Medicine, because there's a lot of these things we're still nutting at the kinks. But one day it's going to be as more and more evidence comes out and it becomes more widely accepted, because unfortunately the medical community, they take a while to adapt it into everyday practice, right? It's a bit of a slow machine, but as these emerging processes become more streamlined, your unique microbiome will be like finding your unique fingerprint. So just to a little bit of a breather, just to encapsulate this so far, we can say that if you don't take anything away, or if you take these things, these four things, the microbiome plays a crucial role in health beyond what we imagine. Your microbiome partners, your microbiome outnumbers your human cells. Your daily choices shape your microbiome, and the future of medicine likely includes microbiome-based therapies. Okay, so this is exciting stuff. So let's revisit what is involved and what are the ramifications of having a thwarted microbiome. Like I mentioned, infectious diseases, liver diseases, gastric cancer, colorectal cancer, esophageal cancer, metabolic conditions like obesity, type 2 diabetes, asthma. Can you imagine? Like there's a link between your deranged microbiome and asthma, autism. There's some emerging studies that are showing that, why is it that developed nations have higher risk of autism than undeveloped? Is it because we're better at picking it up, or is there something more to this? Or what is going on there? And major depression, things that we never imagine is linked to it. Okay, now, I have a bit of a bone to pick here, because I think as a society, we've gone a little bit too extreme in the way we protect our children. I think the philosophy I like to promote is let them eat dirt, so to speak. Let them eat dirt. And I know it sounds funny and it sounds a little bit weird, but actually there's something to it. And one of the hypotheses to why there's so many there's so many higher prevalence of things like allergies, asthma, all these conditions that seems to be in the West is because the West, there tends to be more sterile. We tend to coddle our children, we wipe their face very quickly, or we catch them eating dirt. Oh no, don't do that, whereas in the developing world, it's like, let them do what they want, and then no wonder they don't have. Maybe that's the reason. We don't know for sure, but maybe that's the reason why they don't have as much, asthma. They don't have as much, allergies. Absolutely, they don't have access to, especially in the poorer regions. Unfortunately, they're becoming developed, whether it's McDonald's and processed foods now these days. But back in the day, they ate off the land. So there's so many factors. But I believe this is one of the factors. And we need to explore that. And it all starts right from you're born. Your microbiome, that fingerprint that I was talking about. That fingerprint starts right from you're born. So even the difference between how you were born plays a role, whether you were delivered by a cesarean or whether we're doing it by a vaginal birth. That plays that makes a huge difference in how your microbiome is formed and what happens and the cascading effects from that. And then whether you're breastfed or non-breastfed plays a role. Whether you're getting that IgA, immunoglobulins from your mother, or whether you're getting bottle fed. That's another game changer. And then, of course, as you become an adult, you engage with the environment and all those lifestyle factors that all of you guys just mentioned before. And then, the nutrition and then medications. Unfortunately, I have to, pick a bone to the medical fraternity here and just to understand that, yes, some of the stuff that is having a negative impact is the medications that we give, and the culprit is antibiotics. How many of you guys, when you're having a really bad viral illness, just want to grab that antibiotic? Do we have that tendency to do that? Any brave hands? No? Oh, you guys are none the wiser. Oh, I've got a brave person there. It's very natural, isn't it? When you're overwhelmed and you're just feeling so yuck, you're like, I just want to get over this. I just want to get an antibiotic. But actually, that antibiotic is doing, antibiotics in the right place when you're dealing with sepsis. When we, as a clinician, as a neurosurgical doctor, we get patients with, complications from surgery. We don't want getting sepsis, especially if they're very vulnerable. We have patients in ICU that have, ventilator-associated pneumonia. Those are very serious conditions. That's where antibiotics is appropriate. But I think we need to be careful of the over-prescribing of antibiotics, because that is like a nuclear bomb on your microbiome. Okay, so we need to be very careful with that. And of course, your environment, where you live, plays a role, et cetera, et cetera. And as you age, your microbiome changes a little bit somewhat as well. Okay, so now how do we optimize our microbiome? I'm sure you guys are on your edge of your seat wondering, okay, we've heard about how important it is, but how do I actually get the best out of my nutrition and feed this little, happy family that we've got going here? That's why it's entitled, You Are What They Eat. Okay? You are what they eat, because it turns out that your little friends that is, teeming with life, they need to eat too in order for them to do their job. So how do we, achieve that? And start with the basics. We have the macronutrients, okay? The macronutrients compose of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. All of them play a role, but the most important role, as you'll find, is the carbohydrates. And we're going to find why. Why is carbohydrates? And you guys, there's so much debate about carbohydrates these days. Like, should we have a lot of carbohydrates? Should we not? Somewhat people can describe it as, carbohydrates is like almost like a frenemy. It's sometimes good, sometimes bad. But actually, we're going to find out that carbohydrates is more important that we realize, and that we need to be better friends with the carbohydrates, especially the specific type of carbohydrates that we need to deal with. And the crucial element of this is of carbohydrates is what we call resistant starch, which is a form of insoluble fiber. What is resistant starch? This is crucial, guys. Resistant starch is starch or starch digestive products that survive digestion in the small intestine and somehow make it to the large intestine, which is where that, remember where I said that's where that action happens, that's where that community is located. And so it's the starch that makes it through the small intestine and survive all the way to the large intestine. And there are 4 types of resistant starch, okay? 4 types of resistant starch. They're labeled RS1, RS2, RS3, RS4. So RS1 is more physically protective. RS2 is ungelatinized resistant granules. The one I want you to focus on is RS3, which is retrograded starch, because this is really crucial in that you're going to find that it's not just the type of food you eat, but also the cooking process and how you make the food. And then you have chemically modified starches. All of these have different characteristics and how they interact with physical or chemical properties and how they interact with your body. Okay. Now, in general, when it comes to starches and fiber, it's fantastic, right? So it decreases blood glucose level off the bat, and then when the fermentation process happens, where it promotes the thriving of that colonic bacteria, it has a prebiotic effect. Okay, when we eat those raw foods, so we have probiotics, and then there's prebiotics. So the prebiotics is what we can optimize our microbiota from the food that we eat. And then, so that's right off the bat when it comes to the importance of that. So how do we feed the hungry microbiome? How do we ensure optimal microbiome health? Okay, so first, there's this term that I want to introduce to you called retrogradation. Retrogradation. What do I mean by retrogradation? Retrogradation is when you cook the starch at a particular temperature, and then you allow it to cool down. And then that heating up and cooling process undergoes a specific chemical reaction in which the starches goes from the certain type of starches to the retrograde starch type 3. And that particular starch is particularly very nutritious for the microbiome that you're trying to feed. They thrive on that. Okay, and then they eventually, if we go down through the process, like I said, the breakdown products of the insoluble fibers survives through the small intestine. The ones that make it through the large intestine, certain types of bacteria feed on that, and then another type of bacteria releases, or the breakdown products of that consumption of that starch produces small chain fatty acids, and then other types of bacteria feed on that small chain fatty acids, and then they produce an even smaller chemical. Those smaller chemicals, when it accumulates in the large intestine, gets absorbed through the lining of your gut, which promotes increased blood flow to the lining of your gut, and then which promotes the immune cells that are adjacent to that. And then what happens is that whenever there is a damaged cell among the lining, that cell that has the potential to become bowel cancer, that when your microbiome is healthy, it's more efficient in promoting the immune system to locate that damaged cell and cause what we call autophagy, which means suicide or self-death. So it actually sends a signal to the cell that says, no, you need to go away. You need to cease to exist. And that can only happen when the microbiome is healthy. So it's very crucial, very crucial. So this is the first type of bacteria that gets the resistant starch, and then it sends the breakdown products of small chain fatty acids. This bacteria feeds on that, and then the rest is the way I described it before. So what are some of the foods? You guys are probably wondering, what are the foods that are crucial for this? Well, the first food we have to mention is lentils, the humble lentil. It's very rich in RS1 and RS2 types resistant starches. Doesn't have the RS3 type, but it's nonetheless very, very important in feeding that microbiome. Okay, and it's very, very simple to obtain, and very, very nutritious, and you get all the other nutrients as well from that. Peas and beans, very, very similar makeup. This also makes up the RS1 and RS2. Also packed with nutrients. We mentioned about the developing nations. They thrive on that. Those ones that still hold on to their traditions, they thrive on those foods, and that's why they don't get as much, cancers as the West does. We wonder why. Now, cooked and cooled potatoes. So the humble potato salad turns out to be very, very nutritious for your microbiome. Very, very nutritious. It's rich in that RS3 type of resistant starch. It's that cooking and cooling process, that retrogradation. That's what you get when you eat a potato salad or cooked and cooled potatoes. Don't mistake that for French fries. I don't want you to think that you get the same effect from French fries. No. Because at that time you heat it at extreme temperature, you've just destroyed the nutrients whatsoever. It's a no-starter. But cooked and cooled potatoes at the right temperature is the way to go. It's the way to go. Cooked and cooled pasta, just a pasta salad, you get the same thing. You get that RS3 type of resistant starch. Thank you. You get that RS3 type of resistant starch, which is just absolutely gold for that microbiome. Green bananas, who would have thought? Green bananas. You're probably thinking, why would I get green bananas? But actually, there's actually a method to the madness, because green bananas is actually very, very rich in that RS2 starch, if I'm not mistaken. And sometimes we're very tempted to go past it, but actually don't be afraid to incorporate a little bit of green bananas into your diet. Don't be too scared of the green bananas, because you'll find that it's actually going to be very beneficial. Because keep in mind, you're not really feeding yourself; you're feeding the ecosystem. I cannot confirm that, but I will not be surprised, because a lot of that cooking, and especially if you cook and cool it, you get that conversion between that RS2 and RS3 starch, which is so I wouldn't be surprised that there's a science behind that, because it's the same principle with the other cooking process with other foods, with other starchy foods. So I would not be surprised. I would be very confident to say that there's a good benefit in just eating it. Just eating. I don't know how you would use it. You put it in a salad. You just think of it as like a medicine. If you like, knowing that you're feeding the microbiome, as opposed to something you wouldn't eat regularly. Cooked and cooled oats. It's the same thing. It does the similar things to the cooked and cooled potatoes and the cooked and cooled pasta. So it's very nutritious, a fantastic breakfast option, as we all know. And cooked and cooled rice is the same thing, preferably whole grain rice, okay? But you can imagine the starchy foods associated with that. It's very, very rich in that, especially when you cook and cool it, that RS3 starch as well. But preferably the whole grain variety. Now, I want to talk about, just before we finish, the things that will damage your microbiome, the things that will wreak havoc, okay? And all of these things do the same thing, believe it or not. So red meat, big no-no. Red meat creates a chemical known as TMO, which is known to decrease biodiversity of the gut microbiome. So when you have decreased biodiversity, what happens is that you no longer have that regulation of the immune system that you get from much wider diversity, and as a result, you get more inflammation, and as a result of that inflammation, you get what we call leaky gut syndrome. And when you get leaky gut syndrome, then you have the rest of your body is essentially exposed to the element in terms of all the toxins that are released from that, and then that increases. Obviously, does not cause flourishing. Smoking does exactly the same thing. Drinking alcohol does exactly the same thing, and I already talked about antibiotics already. Okay, it does the same thing. Okay, so just in conclusion, take care of your microbiome friends, because they will take care of you. Okay, so I just want to encourage you guys with that, and without further ado, I'm happy to take questions and answers. Mm-hmm.
Not just cut it off. If it's left for longer, is it going to be beneficial?
No, you just can't hear you at the back.
So you're asking whether, in terms of promoting microbiome, not that I've. There's no studies that I've seen that talks about the benefits. There may be some other benefits that are, but in terms of promoting that, exposing the child to that early phases of the mother's microbiome. You could argue that if you leave the umbilical cord for longer, then those residual nutrients that has come from the mother, the baby has increased exposure to that. But not, for far as I'm aware, in terms of the creating that ecosystem for the baby. Especially if we have to understand the baby is exposed, that they don't have a fully developed immune system. They don't get it into weeks and weeks down the track. They're very much relying on breastfeeding. They're reliant on the environmental factors. So that's any advantage. Nowadays, in modern practices, they take off the umbilical cord as soon as possible. But there may be some residual osmosis, if you like, from the nutrients from the mother that if we leave it longer, but nothing specific about the microbiome, I would say. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
I've heard that if you take prebiotics, where that's coming from, that they don't survive your stomach before they get to your large intestine. So is it just tossing your money down the drain?
Good question. Good question. I think there's no harm in taking prebiotics, but just be aware that the vast majority of that colony that you're ingesting will be will essentially be destroyed by the digestive processes. But having said that, some of it may survive, and it's based on the theory that if you take enough of it, then it creates somewhat like a biofilm and protects the ones that will eventually make it to the large intestine. So yeah, there's no harm, but there's not a lot of strong evidence, to be honest, that prebiotics. I would say the strongest evidence is the prebiotics. Which is the nutritional side of things. That's crucial because it's the starch. We know that for certain that survives the digestive processes. And if it survives the digestive process, that means the microbiome community can feed on that. Okay, so that we know for sure.
Because my husband has been sick, I actually took it to a different practitioner because I like the Ayurvedic medicine, They're different how they approach things. And so that was in Brisbane, and they actually told me, oh, maybe he should have a mapping, a microbiome mapping. And I thought, oh, that's very interesting because I've never done that. But so we sent the sample, and it's a laboratory in Sydney. And I was so fascinated, when that thing arrived, because they have name for everything. Wow. How can they have name, a little bacteria, So actually I got it on my phone. And the thing that they identified, every little bacteria or every little, they classify them like, the problem with this is that it's very expensive. Because $600, I mean, who is going to do that in a hurry? But, when you want to know, you go the long way. But I just tell you what actually, so there are viral pathogens, and they tell you what the normal bacteria gut flora is, and then what appears in there, and how it is affecting some part of your body. The problem is that when you go to the doctor then, because they can actually tell you what's happening in your gut, but they cannot tell you, they cannot prescribe you, they cannot do. So I went to a doctor and I said, listen, I got this particular bacteria. I need to attack the bacteria. And they're looking at you like you're from another planet. And I said, what are you talking about? Yeah, I got this microbiome mapping. And they look at me like, what? And so it's very hard at this point of time. Hopefully it will happen soon that when the medical catch up, the medical practitioner catch up with this, that they will be working together. Because you can have at the moment you can find out what is happening in your gut, but they're not supporting you. They're not supporting you in that. And so it could be, and then what I decided, okay, we go the natural way, because there are so many things food can do, that can really target this particular thing. So I think that's what I found really a little bit frustrating. You can find out what is in your gut, what is happening there, what is attacking you, and food Food is the only thing that we can do at the moment. Drugs, they're not really recognized unless, they send you for a stool test. And unless they can see something, but they cannot see hardly anything in the stool test compared to what this thing can see. It's amazing. It's like like a different universe, so much stuff in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, it is frustratingly slow. Yeah, it's frustratingly slow. But actually, I learned about the microbe. They presented it to us. So I think it's just, they understand that the evidence is there, but it's just very slow and cumbersome process to get it into mainstream and regular practice. And I guess there just needs to be a bit more, I guess, support and, evidence of the efficacy of these things, and maybe it'll catch fire, so to speak. Yeah, it's frustratingly slow. The only time when they care about the microbiome is in hospital, when we get our patients who have been on antibiotics for a long time and they get C. diff. And then that's when it's like, oh no, they've got C. diff, and then that's, it's all panic stations kind of thing. We keep them in, non-contact precautions and everything. But so there's specific applications that they use, and there's also some weird and wonderful treatments like fecal transplants and things like that for people with irritable bowel syndrome, where that is if you go to some specialized centers where they will do that if you have that issue. So there are some very niche, but it's not global or widespread as yet. So it's still emerging, but it's frustrating. But hopefully, as this gets more knowledge out there in the community, and especially to the medical fraternity, hopefully it'll catch on, and you won't have to pay $600 for a test like that.
Okay.
And then yeah. Sorry, you've been waiting for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. I have the question about banana, because I have the issue of acid reflux, and I try to find more. A lot of people in Thailand, I come from Thailand, and a lot of people in Thailand now have a problem with acid reflux almost anywhere. And they now produce you may call it green banana, the special kind of sugar banana in Thailand. It's different from sugar banana in Papua New Guinea. And this particular type, they start to manufacture these, I would call unripe banana. It's not totally green, but it's in between. It's going to ripe, but not ripe. And they make into powder. So people who have problem with acid reflux or stomach, they will take these.
Interesting.
Or or you can eat the fresh one, unripe, going to ripe. But somebody also explained that it has tannic acid. Okay, so I started a question, because I studied chemistry before, especially the effect of the tea on the poisonous metal ions. And whenever I have diarrhea, I would take tea. I would drink tea, because the tea, I suppose the tannin will grab the poisonous things, the complex ion, grab it and make the diarrhea slow down. And it works. So whenever I have problem, I would drink tea.
What's the name of that tea?
Any tea.
Oh, okay.
But the problem, especially black tea, okay, and also if you suspect that you have poison or in the water, you make tea, because it will grab that. That's what I studied when I was in university. But the thing is, I will have problem now, because if banana has a tannic acid, what kind of form of tannic acid in its tummy? If it's tannin, I want that banana to help my acid reflux or my tummy, right, to calm it down. But what if I take it so much, I may have constipation? So I don't know, but you probably understand the process better than me.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, it's a fine balance, isn't it? Sorry.
if we take the banana, which has tannin acid, that type unripe banana probably have more than ripe banana. And so what would happen to it when it go past the small intestine into large intestine? Will it cause a constipation?
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a side effect, and I think that's why I was stressing that you wouldn't take it as a routine thing. It'd be like you treat it like a medicine. Like, you're saying, oh man, like I'm really having an upset stomach, like just not feeling, too crash hot. Just take it in small doses, and then you can offset that with other things that are other insoluble fibers that will promote the passage of waste. So yeah, it is a fine balance. It's not something that I would recommend people eating, as part of their regular diet, but it's an option for people to think about, and it's food for thought. So that they can incorporate it somehow. Maybe that what you said, that powder that you're talking about, maybe that's a more, it could be another way to consume that as well. Yeah, but thank you for your comment. Not necessarily saying that. What I was trying to highlight is that retrogradation process, I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't looked into it specifically for bananas, but the principle would be similar to other cooking processes in other starchy foods. So you can imagine that you cook it to a certain temperature, then they cool it down, then imagine that chemical reaction takes place. So as a result, I wouldn't be surprised that you get that resistant starch type 3 in those cookbananas that is common in those cultures. So I was just highlighting that. I'll have to confirm that if you look into the literature, but it seems to make sense based on these similar principles that you'll get the same outcome. But yeah, I'll have to look into that further.
It's not very easy to digest. So the person already have an issue. And I know with people that come with digestive issues, that we have when we had a retreat. So we always make sure that they don't have anything that is green, like unripe. That creates more upset stomach. So I really think, but we also know that many cultures, they cook. Like we know, we cook the papaya, for example, the green papaya or green pawpaw. And that's really good digestible. But to eat the green pawpaw sometimes is very difficult for people that already have issues. Even though there are some salads. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think if the person has no problem with the stomach, you can eat anything. It's not people that can eat anything. But when you already have an issue, you have to be so careful because the body doesn't digest so easy, though. Back at home, they cook the green papaya, and they make all kind of stuff, dessert and everything. Here, the Asian people, they have it raw. But the fact that we don't recommend raw when the person have a problem with the stomach. Yeah, but if you have no problem, you eat whatever. Some people can eat anything, and they don't suffer. But for somebody already compromised digestive system, that creates a lot of problem. Yeah.
Now, you haven't mentioned how exercise would boost the bacteria. Would it boost them?
Absolutely. So it's what it does. It promotes that blood flow, and then it augments the immune system, and as a result, it dampens down the anti-inflammatory, the negative anti-inflammatory cytokines like interleukin 1, 6, and TNF alpha. But promotes interleukin 1 and interleukin 4, which it prevents that leaky gut phenomena. So exercise, very similar mechanism, and in terms of promoting that, like there's still a bit more research into that, but it's very much very, very beneficial. Very beneficial. Maybe I have a couple more questions. You had a question, and then I'll go to Zane after that. Go, Zane.
Yep. So my question was regarding foods, particularly the meat. You mentioned red meats. I was wondering if other meats have similar or different activity. And also probiotic foods such as fermented foods. What kind of effects do those have?
For sure. Absolutely. Good question. So regarding meat, Essentially, so they have really good studies on red meat, but the other types of meat would be very similar because you're offsetting the nutrition that is actually most efficacious to promote the thriving of those organisms. So, for example, in order to get short-chain fatty acids, which does that cascading waste process that feeds the other types of bacteria and allow them to thrive, you need to have starch, and you can't get starch from animal foods, unfortunately. So all the research specifically, we know for sure that red meat is very deleterious for that, but it's the same with any other foods that offsets the balance, unless you're eating a lot of vegetables with that other types of meat. But the more plant-based foods you incorporate in your diet, the more likely that you're going to produce those short-chain fatty acids that promote the thriving of those organisms, the more molecules they produce in turn, and which promotes the healthy lining of your gut. So that's what I would say. In terms of fermented foods, I'll have to get back to you on that one because I haven't refreshed my memory on that. But yeah, for fermented foods, some people have varying opinions on that. But yeah, I'll get back to you on that one. Okay. Okay.
Latest treatments for Crohn's disease.
Sure.
Particularly the one that's a kind of modern probiotic, which I think might be GMO.
Sure. So latest treatments, like I'll put a disclaimer. My specialty is in neurosurgery. So I'll give you a basic schematic on the treatments that they use for Crohn's disease. A lot of it is to do with dampening down the immune system. So unfortunately, the modern techniques is that they use steroids, and they use all sorts of biologics as well. And because as you know, Crohn's disease is not just the disease, the local inflammation of the colon, but it has other extra bowel effects as well that affects your eyes and other autoimmune aspects. So a lot of it is to do with the systemic therapy, and of course, if it gets really, really bad and uncontrolled, then unfortunately the general surgeon will remove that section of bowel before it becomes bowel cancer. Because what happens is that Crohn's disease, when it's not controlled or treated, and when it allows to go awry, actually leads to, because it's chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation leads to cancer. It's the rule of medicine, basically. So eventually, sometimes they will prophylactically resect part of the bowel that's affected. But having said that, that's an extreme situation. There's other biologics. There are other immune modulators that they'll use first line, especially if they catch it early. But there's specific types, because that's not my area of expertise. I'm not particularly aware of. But yeah, but great question. Great question. Maybe one more question. I had a. Who had their hand up? Elder. Sorry, you had a question there?
So thank you for your presentation.
Oh,
yeah, there's some information that I didn't know. Yeah, like cooking. I used to cook and eat just at the same time. I don't call it. I don't know the significance of that. Now I know it.
Yeah.
And so thank you very much.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's amazing how, raw food is extremely important, but we also see the benefits of cooked food. I think sometimes cooked food gets a bad name. Sometimes it's like, oh, you're cooking, you're destroying the nutrients. Actually, you're actually creating, especially if you're cooking the right foods, the right nutrients for your gut, which is leads to systemic well-being. So you need both. You need a balance. And for those of you who were at the cooking class yesterday, if you had the privilege to go to that, we got to experience that balance, isn't it? So that was fantastic. Yeah. Okay. One more question then. Polyphenols. Polyphenols. I don't have any. You're asking a lot of fantastic questions. Do you mind? I'll get back to you on that one. Yeah, okay. I'll get back to you on that one. Okay. So what?
I have a question. Sorry. How long should we wait to drink after we eat?
Oh, great question. So, as long as possible. to be honest, because what you don't want is to dilute the digestive substances, and often that's crucial. If you're drinking while you're eating, then you're not going to digest your food properly, and so it's good practice to drink. Either you drink before you eat and you wait for some time to eat after that, or you wait. I would say give it at least 30 minutes. Yeah, 30 minutes. Before you drink again. Yeah, just to allow the food to digest. Yeah, great question. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Just for the, because I know you guys are busy people and you have to go to work tomorrow, and so I just want to thank you for coming. And don't forget about tomorrow night. We're going to look at the China study. You don't want to miss that. It's a blockbuster presentation, because we're going to look at the underpinnings and what we know about the epidemiology of cancer, and how the reason why developed nations have high rates of cancer and why undeveloped nations or other third world countries don't get as much cancer. And we're going to try and pick the good parts of that aspect and apply it in our lives. So we'll look forward to that. So thank you for coming down, and wish you guys safe travels. Thank you.